Hi everyone, I'm just sharing what this junk journal looks like. I am working on a little purple junk journal, and the pages that I'm using that are printable came from a Shabby Dabby Doodah kit on Etsy. And you can see here I'm just kind of showing you all the pages. It's a really quick flip through just so you can see what the album looks like before I do any embellishing on that. And then earlier I just showed you kind of a white paper with some stenciling on it. Those are just various stencils, I believe all from Tim Holtz, that I used, and I just kind of used my antique linen and put that on the background because I printed these and I just printed them on the front side, not the back, and I thought that would be nice to add that what's it called, the antique linen distress stain on there, and then that way it just has a place you can still write on it, but it had something besides just white paper. So I just kind of showed you how this album I did make is pretty flexible. I just put some real pretty purple fabric on there, and it's flexible because I just used some kind of thinner chipboard paper to make the front and back cover, and I really like that kind of floppy or that squishy nature of the journal. So I really enjoy how that feels in your hand. It just is nice. It's not as stiff as some of the journals I've made before. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking some of this Tim Holtz packaging and I'm going to recycle it. I'm going to use both pieces. You can see I trimmed down the one. It was a little too wide, I thought, for a flip, so I decided to trim down an edge of it, and I will end up using that other edge that I trimmed off here in a little bit. So here's just some of that paper from the Shabby Dabby Doodah kit. I wanted to back this piece of paper from Tim Holtz, and I'm just going to trim it down with my little edge tool here from We Are Memory Keepers. I like how this gives a really nice straight edge, but it has that little bit of texture, so it's not so straight. And I use my vintage, or sorry, not my vintage, my antique linen to add some color around the edges. I do like to ink up on my edges. I just feel like it finishes off the piece, so you will see me doing a lot of inking. I try to not ink the entire thing on camera. I try to kind of bypass some of that, but it's really hard sometimes to edit the video for you guys to see everything if I keep chopping it up. So I try to take out some of that inking, but you will end up seeing a little bit of it through my process. So now I wanted to make sure I could journal on this card, so I'm going to take some of this vintage paper that I had in my stash and trim it down to fit the back of the flip here. And I was thinking I was going to use those holes in the paper because I thought it'd look kind of fun, but I ended up deciding against that and not putting that down. I also decided that because the paper is pretty thin, you can really see it from behind when if you glued it down. So I am going to put this paper down first and then add the line paper on top of it, and then just blocks out some of that advertising and things on the back of that Tim Holtz upcycled packaging that I'm using. Again, this paper is from one of the Shabby Dabby Doodah kits, just using my glue stick. I use my glue stick a lot of times when I'm using copy paper. I think that's probably the best thing when you want like a full contact on the glue to whatever you're gluing it to. So I do recommend the glue stick. Just make sure you get a really nice glue stick that affixes really well. I've had a lot of crappy glue sticks in my time, and I found that Oohoo glue stick works pretty well. So I do recommend that one. And if it's anything thicker than a copy paper or like this line paper, I end up using a more of a liquid glue or a dry roller glue because sometimes it doesn't work as well if the paper is thicker. But for these thinner papers, it works perfect. So you can see I just trimmed down that line paper a bit more to add for a journaling spot, and then I want to cover up this little flip here. I'm going to pull the paper that I used in the back over to the front side and just kind of ties everything together, and just using my We Are Memory Keepers ruler to trim it out. And then I'll use my glue stick again to add that to the top flip here. And I'm just using an old phone book as a glue book. It's perfect because I just throw those away because I don't use a phone book anymore, but it's perfect for this type of thing. So I'm going to add another strip here. This is the top of the flap, so I did the top and the bottom of the flap. I'm going to add some more lined paper to the front of the flap here. I thought it would look cute to have a little bit extra, and then again it brings that lined paper from the back up to the front. Gluing that down with my glue stick again, and then I would adhere that to the little flip. And now I am going to look at my stash to see what else I can put on here. I definitely want to do some embellishing on the little flip. So I'm going to just look through all this stuff, and I end up pulling out something that looks kind of like a stamp. This is also from the Shabby Dabby Doodah kit. Just inking around that real quickly with some antique linen. I will glue that down, here in a little bit. Because some of it's going to be showing off the edge, I do add some of that antique linen to the back because it was just printed on white cardstock. I'm going to use the little beautiful day strip, and then I wanted to use some of this coffee dyed cheesecloth just to add some more texture to the flip. And I will just glue everything down with my Beacon 3-in-1 glue. This is a really good glue for fabric, and I just really like how it works, and it doesn't wrinkle my page, which is perfect. So just inking around all my edges here. Again, I just think it finishes off the piece really nicely. And then I'm just trying to make sure I'm going to like how everything's laying. I just trim off a little extra. It was a little bit too much on the end. I'm going to glue this down again with my 3-in-1. Stick that on top of the cheesecloth, and then I'm going to add a little faux stamp here. And I believe this flip is done. I might add a little bit more to it. I can't quite remember. It's been a little bit since I made this. You can see here I'm just going to trim some of this off. It was kind of getting mushed over because of the crease. Just kind of zhuzhing it up a bit so you can't tell. And yeah, I really like how this flip turned out. I do add some stitching. I do. So that's copper stitching, and then that's white stitching on the other side. I have the white in the bottom part of the bobbin, and then I have the gold or the copper that's in the main part, and I like how the contrast looks. I didn't want the copper on the one side. I like how the white was on the back, so it worked out perfectly. So now I do want to embellish the front of this, but still leave some journaling spots. So I am taking this little kind of label that you can use for journaling, and I'm going to add this to here. And then I'm going to add this postage stamp again from the Shabby Dabby Doodah kit and the little clock. Just gluing everything down with my Beacon 3-in-1. And again, it's perfect. It's an alcohol-based glue, so it doesn't warp the page at all. I felt like it needed a little bit of something, so I just stitched around with a straight stitch with that same copper thread. And then I'm going to add a little clock down, just trying to make sure I put it upright so it's not upside down. And now I'm going to show you how it's going to look in the book. So I'm just going to find a page that seems appropriate for it. And just kind of making sure the front and back look nice together. And then I'm going to pull a little paper clip out from my stash. I can't remember where these paper clips are from. You can see I just have them all kind of in that little case there. And I'm going to add this to the top. And it's a little thick, so I do have to kind of play and finagle with the paper clip, but it ends up working just fine. So there's that one all done. I really like how that looks, and I like that you can then journal on this card, and it adds another journaling space. So here's that piece that I cut off earlier, and I'm going to decorate this one as well. Again, just using papers from the Shabby Dabby Doodah printable kit from Etsy. And I really like this color paper here. I did print this on more of a cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker, so it's a little bit harder to tear with my tear ruler. And of course you can see I tore it pretty poorly, so it's not straight at all. And so I had to trim more off. And I got to trim more off again because I really did a bad job. So finally it's going to be decent, and I'm going to trim out the other side. I'm just adding a really thin strip here. And then it didn't quite make it to the bottom, so I am going to pull out some, I believe this is dictionary paper. I'm going to just add that to the bottom. And the Tim Holtz packaging looks nice too. I could have just left it because it does look nice on this side, but I decided I really wanted to have this dictionary page. So just using my glue stick, I'll glue that down. Just smush it down so it's nice and flat, and then trim off any excess. And then I'll add this on top. I was feeling like this was looking a little funny, so I'm kind of contemplating what I want to do. And so I decided to add some different dictionary paper here to the top flap. This is really thin, so it's nice. It does go over the crease pretty well. A lot of times when I have like a fold or a bend in the paper, I will cut my paper into two pieces so that there is no paper in that gap. But because this dictionary paper is so thin, it ends up looking very nice. It doesn't end up kind of bunching too much in the corner. You can see here I'm kind of playing with it, but I think it worked well with it being so thin. So I decided now that I'm going to add this little strip of paper down. And I like that better now that I have that dictionary page at the top and the bottom. And I decided I wanted to use a little bit more. This is a little scrap piece that I had sitting around, so I thought, hey, might as well use it instead of throwing it away. And this will just be a little place to anchor an embellishment. So that's a good tip if you're trying to decorate and do some collaging. You can have like little pieces like that that just kind of anchor whatever you're going to use to embellish. So this is another stamp book that I made, and I'm just pulling out a stamp that I like. I thought I was going to use that rose, and I kind of wanted to just because I have quite a few of the same pattern, but I decided it just wasn't going to look right on this page. So I'm going to pull out another book that I have, stamps. So I kind of have my stamps separated by like people or places or florals or animals, and I decided to pull out this blue stamp instead. I don't remember exactly what's on the stamp, but it's a person. I think it's a girl. I can't remember exactly. But I'm just going to put that on the card here, or the flip, and then have some cheesecloth hiding behind it. And just like the, excuse me, I like the texture that it gives the page. Using my 3-in-1 glue. Anytime I use fabric, I use my 3-in-1 glue. It seems to work the best. So now I need to cover up the rest of this flip here, and I'm going to pull out just the pink. I thought the pink would be a nice contrast. It's nice and simple, and you can see I'm just using the packaging to estimate the size I need to trim it at. And then I will glue that down after I ink it. Again, just finishing off the edges with the antique linen. Pulled out another piece of ephemera that looks like a stamp and the word happiness. Again, just inking around the edges of this. The stamp I did just fussy tear instead of trim it out because there's a lot of little pieces and it just seemed to lend itself well to tearing out rather than cutting. The happiness I do like, but it just was a little bit too big on this flip, so I'm going to look through my stash and see if I can find anything else. I decided thoughts would work, but I am going to trim it out just a bit more. It was still a little bit too big, but better than the happiness, so I'm just going to trim the edges and then add that on after I ink it. I do want to add a little bit of something here. This is the salvage edge of the fabric I used to cover the journal with, and I wanted to use some of it up, so I'm just putting that on the bottom kind of as a base piece and then layering my little embellishments on top of that. So I thought that was perfect, just gluing that down to the top flap, and then that part of the little flip is done. I really like how that turned out. So now all I have is the back piece that I need to use or decorate. So I will do some collaging on this as well. I'm going to pull out some more paper. I'm trying to decide if I want to use the lined paper or just a decorative paper from the kit. So just kind of messing around. I did find when I was looking for something this, what's it called? Straw paper that I got from Roxy Creations, which is Rachel. Her Etsy channel or her YouTube channel is Roxy Creations. And I really like this paper. I really love the texture of the straw paper, and I think she had mentioned that she can no longer get the straw paper, but you definitely should check out her Etsy shop to see if she has any in stock or if she was able to get any, or just her Etsy shop in general. She has a lot of great stuff on there. So I'm just using bits and pieces that I had offcuts from, and I just use the strip there. I use a little piece of that kind of hydrangea paper, and then I have this little thin strip of paper that I'm going to try to trim out, and I am going to glue that down as well. Again, just kind of clustering it on the background and then adding a bit of my antique linen. So I like how the back of this looks, nice and simple. I do want to add a little bit of something else, so I'm going to pull out the little clock with the birds on it, ink it up, and then glue that down. And I like how that looks on the back here. Just gives it a little something without doing too much to it. And you could even journal on this strip as well, like on the what is it called, the straw paper portion. So that is pretty much it for this video. I am going to show you how this little flip is going to go in the book. It's going to look pretty much the same as the other one, just on a different page. Just auditioning it, adding the same paper clip, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and if you are not already a subscriber, please subscribe. I will talk to you guys again very soon. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.